I have to admit, this was the moment that made me stop and look at Jocelyn in a completely different way. I wasn't thinking about explosions, secret missions, or dangerous villains. What stayed with me was one simple confession. Sometimes a few honest words can hit harder than any action scene, and that's exactly what happened here. Around here, folks like to say, you can't unring a bell, and once I heard what Joss admitted, I knew there was no going back for her. For a long time, I kept wondering whether Joss was just a young woman caught up in the excitement of becoming a WSB agent. I figured she might eventually realize the job was too heavy, too complicated, and maybe she'd find her way back to the life Carly always wanted for her. Well, I don't believe that anymore. Watching her now, I see someone who has fully accepted what this life demands. That's both impressive and heartbreaking at the same time. What really stands out to me is how naturally Joss has grown into this role. Jack may have opened the door for her, but nobody forced her to walk through it. She didn't just survive inside the WSB, she flourished. After helping bring down Cullum, it's obvious she's no longer the rookie everyone underestimated. She carries herself like someone who has already learned the hardest lesson an intelligence agent can learn. Feelings come second, the mission comes first. The conversation with Lucas was the moment that convinced me she has crossed a line she may never cross back over. I could almost feel Lucas's disappointment when Joss admitted she had used him to gain access to Spoon Island. That wasn't a little white lie told to spare someone's feelings. It was a calculated decision, one made because the mission mattered more than family. I honestly felt sorry for Lucas. He believed he was strengthening his relationship with his niece, only to discover that every step had been part of a larger plan. What makes this even more unsettling isn't that Joss apologized. I actually believed she meant every word of that apology. The part that gave me chills was what came afterward. When Lucas wanted to know if she would ever do something like that again, she didn't hide behind excuses or comforting promises. She admitted she would. That answer told me everything I needed to know about who she has become. To me, that wasn't the confession of a confused young woman. It was the confession of a true WSB agent. She has accepted that sometimes the job requires sacrificing trust, relationships, and even pieces of herself. That's a frightening way to live, because once someone starts believing the mission always comes first, it becomes harder and harder to remember where the line between right and wrong used to be. And that's exactly why I can't blame Carly for panicking. Any mother would be terrified after hearing something like this. Carly isn't just worried about the danger of bullets or enemies. I think she's watching her daughter slowly become someone she barely recognizes. In my eyes, that's the real tragedy unfolding here, and I have a feeling this conflict between mother and daughter is only getting started. The more I sit with Carly's side of the story, the more I realize this isn't really about the WSB anymore. It's about a mother watching her daughter slowly become someone she no longer understands. I've seen plenty of parents hold on too tightly because they're afraid of losing their children, and I can't honestly say Carly is doing anything unusual. She's scared, plain and simple. Fear has a way of making even the strongest people dig in their heels, and that's exactly where Carly is right now. Think about everything she's been through in such a short time. Joss was shot. She nearly died. Every mother remembers the worst day of her child's life, and I doubt Carly will ever erase those terrifying images from her mind. So when she points the finger at the WSB, I can't say I blame her. In her eyes, this dangerous organization didn't just give Joss a career. It brought violence, secrets, and the constant possibility that the next phone call could be the one every parent dreads. The problem is that Carly is trying to solve today's problem with yesterday's understanding of her daughter. She still believes Joss is the same young woman who simply got swept away by Jack's influence. She wants to believe that if Jack disappeared tomorrow, everything would go back to normal. I don't think that's true anymore. That version of Joss is gone, and I don't mean that in a cruel way. I mean, she's grown into someone who has made peace with choices most people couldn't imagine making. That's why I keep coming back to the confession she made to Lucas. I don't think Carly has any idea how deeply that conversation reveals who Joss has become. Using a member of your own family to complete a mission is already difficult to accept. Looking him in the eye, apologizing sincerely, and then calmly admitting you would do it all over again if the mission required it. That tells me Joss has embraced the philosophy of the WSB far more completely than Carly realizes. I can only imagine the look on Carly's face when she hears the full story. I don't think she'll focus on the apology. She'll hear one sentence echoing over and over in her mind, that her daughter would make the same decision again. For Carly, that won't sound like professionalism. It'll sound like she's losing the little girl she raised. And as a parent, that's a terrifying feeling because you start asking yourself questions that have no easy answers. Where did I lose her? Did I miss the signs? Could I have done something differently? Those thoughts can keep a parent awake all night. Then we have Z. And I found his reaction fascinating because it showed just how differently the WSB sees Joss compared to Carly. While Carly sees a daughter in danger, Z sees an exceptional agent. He wasn't impressed because Joss completed a mission. He was impressed because she proved she could separate personal emotions from professional responsibility. That's exactly the quality intelligence organizations value, even if it's the very quality families fear the most. When Z compared Joss to Anna, I felt that carried enormous weight. Around Port Charles, Anna's reputation wasn't built overnight. It came from years of sacrifice, impossible choices, and missions that demanded more than ordinary people could ever understand. Hearing Joss mentioned in the same breath tells me the WSB believes she's no longer a trainee. They've already started looking at her as someone capable of carrying enormous responsibility. At the same time, I couldn't help feeling sorry for Carly during that conversation. She walked in hoping someone would reassure her that her daughter had simply gotten in over her head. Instead, she was met with confidence, praise, and what almost felt like amusement. It was as though everyone inside the WSB was saying, "Your daughter belongs here whether you like it or not." That's probably the hardest thing Carly has ever had to hear. The sad truth is that Carly is fighting an enemy she can't defeat. She can argue with Jack, she can confront Z, she can blame the WSB every chance she gets. But none of those battles change the one fact she refuses to accept. Joss isn't asking to be rescued. She's choosing this life every single day. That's a painful reality because parents spend years protecting their children only to discover there comes a moment when protection starts feeling like control. I've watched Carly long enough to know she rarely backs down. That's part of what makes her such a compelling character. She loves fiercely, protects relentlessly, and refuses to surrender when the people she loves are in trouble. But every strength has a weakness. Sometimes her determination becomes stubbornness, and stubbornness can blind even the smartest people to what's right in front of them. If Carly keeps believing this is all Jack's fault, she's going to miss what's actually happening. Her daughter isn't being manipulated anymore. She's making independent decisions, and those decisions are becoming harder, colder, and more calculated with every mission she completes. Whether Carly likes it or not, Joss has found a purpose that gives her confidence and direction. The heartbreaking part is that the same purpose pulling Joss forward is pushing her farther away from the people who know her best. Looking ahead, I don't think this story is leading toward Joss walking away from the WSB anytime soon. In fact, I think the opposite is happening. Every successful mission strengthens her confidence. Every compliment from people like Z reinforces the belief that she's exactly where she belongs. The deeper she goes, the more difficult it becomes to imagine living any other life. Still, I can't shake one uncomfortable thought. Becoming a great WSB agent may require Joss to sacrifice pieces of herself little by little. It may not happen all at once. It might happen so slowly that she doesn't even notice it. One mission asks her to lie. The next asks her to betray someone's trust. Another asks her to put duty ahead of family. Before long, those impossible choices start feeling ordinary. That's the part that worries me the most, because once that line disappears, it's incredibly difficult to find it again. So while everyone around Port Charles is arguing about whether Joss should stay with the WSB, I find myself asking a different question altogether. Yes, she may become one of the agency's finest agents. I wouldn't be surprised if she does. But when all these missions are over and the dust finally settles, will she still recognize the young woman she used to be? Somehow, I have a feeling that answer will matter far more than any mission she ever completes.